Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. Frankenstein. By Mary Shelley. A party of pals was staying at a Swiss manor on a dark and stormy night. Lord Byron, John William Polidori, Claire Claremont, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and his wife, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, are among the members of the group. It was Lord Byron's way of passing the time. Individual ghost tales were to be written. In the end, just 2 of the manuscripts were published. Vampires as aristocratic seducers were first featured in a short fiction by Polidori, which was published in 1897. Mary Shelley's masterwork Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, written when she was only 18, was the second. A man decides to build a monster in the story. Victor Frankenstein is a natural scientist of the highest caliber. Electricity, he learns through his investigations, is capable of reviving the dead. He becomes infatuated with an ocean and builds a man, then harnesses the lightning to bring his creation to life on a dark and stormy night. Victor is immediately repulsed by his creation and flees. It is only after the monster comprehends the world that he begins to flee from it. Victor is sick and afraid the entire time. The monster is perplexed and then enraged throughout the story. Victor's goal is to ignore and forget about his invention. He can't get away from the beast. When the monster learns of his abhorrent creation, he seeks vengeance on the person who created it. In time, he transforms into the creature he looks like. Everyone Victor cares about is killed by the monster. The monster and his creator are both killed off at the end of the story. One of the earliest examples of science fiction in literature is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, whose monster is a product of a scientific experiment. From Paradise Lost, Frankenstein begins, "Did I desire thee from mine clay to mold me, man? I solicited you from darkness to promote me?" Percy Bysshe Shelley, the poet, is usually believed to have authored the author's introduction, which is included in this volume. The narrative was inspired by a rainy day contest between her husband, Lord Byron, and a group of friends while on vacation in Switzerland, according to the preface. They were all supposed to compose ghost stories, as suggested by Lord Byron, but only Mary managed to finish hers. An epiphany occurred to her when she was struggling to come up with an idea and dreamt that she was the scientist responsible for creating a man who came to life. When she first awoke, afraid, the words just flowed. The story of Frankenstein is told in the form of letters. Margaret Saville in England receives letters from Robert Walton, an irate writer who is now the captain of a ship bound for the North Pole. Walton aspires to uncover a northern route to the Pacific Ocean, investigate the Earth's magnetic origins, and, if all else fails, set foot on some hitherto unknown territory. No one on the ship can converse well with Walton, and he has no gentleman on board. A half-mile distant, Walton and his crew spy an enormous man-like monster on the back of a snowmobile, which they believe to be an extraterrestrial humanoid. In the ice the next morning, they locate a man who is close to death. On his sled, there was only one dog left, but he was still alive. After Walton convinces him they are going north, he agrees to be saved by the team. The 2 men become friends as the new visitor recovers from his illness. Walton begins to hear the man's story as he tells it slowly. Victor was born in Geneva, the capital of the Swiss canton of Geneva. While growing up, Henry Clerval and Elizabeth, whom he had taken in as a child, were his closest pals. He was fascinated by the natural world and electricity when he was a teen. He began studying alchemy, but when he learnt about the potential of electricity, he decided to abandon the study of alchemy in favor of studying electricity. Victor's mother succumbs to scarlet fever at the age of 17. Elizabeth is made to swear an oath of fidelity to Victor by her dying mother. He must first go to university in Ingolstadt before anything else may happen. He intends to get a degree in natural philosophy there. It is M. Krempe who is his teacher. As a result, Victor quickly loses interest and moves on to study chemistry instead. Victor is a science nerd who loves to delve deep into the subject matter. He studies anatomy because he is curious about the inner workings of the human body. Friends and family fall by the wayside as he devotes himself entirely to his studies. He soon learns all the academics can teach him and feels he's found the secret of life. Victor is secretly putting the finishing touches on a man. He continues to neglect his family and friends. In addition, he neglects his education and his physical well-being. He becomes so engrossed in his work that he suffers from a mental breakdown. In the midst of a rainstorm, Victor brings his creation to life. His creation has frightened him so terribly that he shuts down the power and retreats for some much-needed rest. When Victor wakes up in the middle of the night, the creature stands over him, a menacing smirk on its face. Victor, terrified, leaps from his bed and runs from the house. Henry Clerville, a longtime friend of Victor's, greets him after a night of frenzied pacing. Henry is attending university in Ingolstadt, and he wanted to see if he could track down his old acquaintance. To Victor's relief, the creature has vanished from his apartment. Victor, on the other hand, is critically unwell after spending the night outside in the weather. Henry is nursed back to health by him over the following few months. When Victor's health improves, he introduces Henry to some of the university's professors. However, Victor becomes sick when he is near the university's laboratories. Victor receives a letter from his father informing him that his brother has been murdered, and he is devastated. Victor is on his way to Geneva right now. Stopping at the scene of his brother's death on his way, he spots the creature he made watching him. The creature, he concludes, is responsible for the death of his brother. Upon returning to his father's home, he discovers that his father's ward, Justine, has been accused of murder. His younger brother had a picture of her that she possesses. Despite his best efforts, Victor is unable to provide any evidence to back up his accusations. She finally admits, but when she sees Elizabeth and Henry, she insists that she is innocent. It breaks Victor's heart when Justine is executed for the crime because the monster he created is now responsible for 2 deaths in his family. Victor's mood deteriorates after Justine's death. Though he considers taking his own life, he holds back because of his concerns about his father and his girlfriend, Elizabeth. For some much-needed rest and relaxation, the family heads off into the countryside. They live in a suburb of Geneva called Bellerive. There, Victor begins to recover as he takes walks to clear his mind. When he walks to the top of Montanvert, he encounters the monster again. Despite the monster's greater size and speed, Victor pursues him, hurling threats in his direction. Astonished, Victor hears the monster's fluent speech, which he had no idea was possible. Victor is invited to sit by the fire in the cave and listen to the monster's tale. To him, it seems like he is the only person in the world. That's why he makes a break for it and runs out of the home into the pitch black of the storm. The first thing he notices is how his body feels. Warmth and light were the first feelings he felt. The warmth of a fire soon becomes apparent to him, but he is shocked when he burns his finger. Adding additional wood to the fire warms it up, and he realizes that he can cook his food on it as well. People scare the monster away since his first encounters with humanity are so traumatic. They are all frightened by his scars and deformities. A hovel next to a cottage provides him with some much-needed protection for the night. A break in the wall lets him sight into the cottage the next morning. Felix, his sister Agatha, and their father, Mr. de Lacy, live at the cottage. Hovel-dwelling winters are a good time for him to keep an eye on things at home. From them, he learns about love and heartache. The only time they are sad is when they don't have enough food, he notices. In order to help out, the monster realizes that some of this is due to him because he's been stealing their food. As he listens and watches others speak, he learns the language. When he compares himself to the humans in the house, the monster begins to understand why so many people fled when they spotted him in the hamlet. As he spends more time in the hovel, the monster develops a love for his neighbors and a sense of family ties with them. The monster notes that the family, especially Felix, is less joyful as the winter weather fades away. Felix is delighted when a lovely woman, Sophie, shows up one day. In the first, she is unable to converse with other members of the family because she is an Arabian, but Felix begins to teach her, and as she learns their language, so does the monster. At this time, he also begins to learn how to read. The monster will soon be able to piece together the entire story. In France, the de Lacy family was a wealthy one. A Turk in prison after being wrongly accused of a crime was visited by Felix for the first time. Felix fell in love with Sophie, the Turk's daughter, while he was there. Sophie wrote to Felix to express her gratitude for all of his assistance to her father. Originally, Sophie's mother was a Christian Turk who had been enslaved by the Turks, but she later married Sophie's father, who was a Turk. As a result of her mother's influence, she grew up to be a strong woman with a sharp mind, 2 traits that can be harmful for women in Islamic Turkey. Her dream was to find a husband in Europe and be free of the shackles of servitude. He was deported from France and deprived of his money after helping the Turks get out of prison. Because of this, de Lacy and his family had lived in a German cottage. As a result, Sophie was able to find them. Her father tried to get her to return to Constantinople with him once he was released from prison, but she refused. Sophie amassed all of her resources and made her way to Felix. While foraging for food in the woods, the monster comes across a satchel that has been dropped. He finds several books in there and brings them back to his shack to read. Paradise Lost is one of the books in the collection. Milton's Fall of Man is what he's currently reading. The monster begins to see himself in Adam's exile from the garden in the poetry. His thoughts turn to his own creation as he recalls certain papers taken from Frankenstein's laboratory before fleeing. In the process of taking them out of his pocket, he learns that they are entries from his journal. The monster's disdain grows as he reads and learns more about his bizarre creation. The misery he feels is compounded by the fact that his creator is clearly repulsed by him. The monster is discouraged by these findings and tries to befriend the house's residents. He chooses to begin with the elderly gentleman. It is his hope that he can persuade the blind DeLacy that he is sincere before anyone notices his defects. Perhaps the elderly man will be able to win over the other members of the group with his nice demeanor. Finally, the three youngest members of the family are able to go on a walk together. The monster collects his confidence and knocks on the door while they are gone. They arrive at the house as he is getting to know him and explaining his condition to him. Felix is frightened by the monster's appearance, so he attacks and chases it away. At this point, the monster begins to focus his rage on those around him, including his creator. He stays away from people while traveling, but he stops to help a young girl who is about to drown in a lake. A man shoots him after he saves the girl's life and believes he is attacking her. The monster is making his way to Geneva, his rage growing stronger by the day. He runs into Victor's brother in the woods. A furious creature attacks the youngster and strangles him the moment he mentions his father's name or where he came from. It is at this point when Justine's photo is found in his pocket and placed on her. Afterward, the monster asks Victor to make him a mate once he finishes his story with the murder of Victor's brother. What drives him to be violent is an absence of companionship. After he offers to relocate and bring his mate with him to the jungles of South America, Victor eventually accepts his proposal. The monster, who does not believe in Victor, promises to keep a careful eye on him. Following his departure from the monster, Victor begins to question the validity of his deal with the creature. Seeing his son's changing feelings, his father asks him if he's having second thoughts about marrying Elizabeth. Father Victor is assured that Elizabeth is the lone bright light in Victor's day-to-day. He declines his father's suggestion to move the wedding ahead. As soon as his agreement with the monster is over, Victor plans to leave the city. Instead, he approaches his father and asks if he can go on a trip first. Henry joins him on the journey to England that he has planned. There's nothing more Henry wants than to escape his father's house. They intend to travel for 2 years. Victor grows anxious to wrap up his agreement with the monster once they've finished their tour of England. Victor persuades Henry to stay with a friend of his in Scotland while he explores the area. In the Orkneys, he has a lab and a shanty that he intends to take with him. The monster's mate is a constant reminder of the horrors that he is bringing to life. Because of this, he fears that he and the woman may be able to conceive a race of monsters. The creature arrives at the window and scares Victor as he contemplates these fears. Thus, Victor spirals out of control. The creature he's working on is destroyed by him. Angry, the creature determines that the best way to retaliate is to annihilate Victor's wife. On the eve of his nuptials, he promises to see him once more. The creature's remains and Victor's chemicals are dropped into the water from a boat. After that, he takes a nap in the boat's hull. Victor discovers that he has drifted further than he anticipated when he awakens. When Victor finally gets to the shore, he discovers that he has been placed on administrative leave for the murder he committed the night before. He is taken before the magistrate, where he is summoned to view the body. Henry Clerval has been strangled by the beast. Victor collapses in fear. When Victor is imprisoned for 2 months, he is sick the entire time. His father finally arrives, and the magistrate, who is starting to show some compassion for him, tells him so. At the hearing, the charges against him are dropped due to a lack of evidence. Victor and his father return to Geneva. As soon as Victor returns to Geneva, the wedding planning process will begin. Because of his memories of the monster's threat to kill him, Victor believes he will be targeted by it on his wedding night. He has decided to take on him, and if either of them dies, his agony will be over. Victor and Elizabeth stay at an isolated inn after their wedding. To avoid Elizabeth witnessing his battle with the beast, Victor takes a walk. He finds her dead body after hearing her beg for help. He understands what the monster was trying to get at. When Victor tells his father about Elizabeth, the man falls ill and dies 2 days later. He is distraught. As a result, Victor is now a lone wolf in the wilderness. The magistrate does not trust him when he tells him the complete thing. As a result, Victor chooses to devote the remainder of his life to discovering and defeating the aforementioned creature. Victor has arrived at his current position after following numerous clues provided by the monster on purpose to keep him on his trail. Walton promises Victor he will carry on the quest even after he is gone. The letters of Robert Walton. We're back with Walton now. He tells his sister that Victor's health is alternating between good and bad. He, too, is convinced by the man's tale. Since the sailors first spotted the monster, the ship has been stuck in ice, and they ask the monster to turn around as soon as the ice free them from their captivity. When Victor hears their plea, he gives them a pep talk about the importance of keeping searching. For the next 2 days, the speech is still having an impact. Then they want to go back to England once more. Walton agrees, but hesitantly. Victor dies on the day that the ship breaks free. The sound of Walton's stateroom, where Victor's body lies, can be heard while the ship is getting ready to depart. It's the monster, and he's every bit as dreadful as Victor had predicted. The body has brought him to his knees. Afterwards, the monster recounts the events of his life to Walton, lamenting the loss of his loved ones. He feels remorse for what he done to him. "My spirit shall sleep in peace," declares the monster as he leaps from the window afterward. Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant scientist, who brings the dead to life. Victor is a young boy who was fascinated by natural philosophy and alchemy at the start of the tale. When he was growing up in Geneva, he devoured all of his father's books on the subject, only to discover how old those volumes were when he went to college. The realm of science is ever evolving. He shifts his focus to chemistry and other sciences, including anatomy, at university. Acquiring as much knowledge from his lecturers as possible, he moves on to his own research. Victor's insatiable curiosity drives him away from his loved ones and causes him physical and mental health problems. To bring the monster to life at the end of the experiment, his health is at its lowest point. Victor is plagued by physical and mental ailments throughout the story, while the monster he created is wreaking havoc on his life. Victor's ultimate goal is the abolition of the monstrous foe. The monster, 8 feet tall and grotesque. His creator, Victor Frankenstein, fashioned him from human remains and gave him life through the use of electricity and an unidentified substance. As a baby, the monster must learn everything from scratch. However, he is on his own now that Victor has abandoned him. He attempts to fit in, but his external appearance scares and frightens everyone he meets. Intuitive and quick to learn, the monster is a formidable opponent. He learns to speak and read in a short period of time by discreetly studying a family. Upon discovering his creation, the monster is utterly horrified. Seeing that he is Adam, the monster seeks out his creator, Victor Frankenstein, and demands that he have an Eve. During this time, the monster also kills Victor's brother and falsely accuses an innocent woman of his crime. In the aftermath of Victor's guilt over the creation of the monster and his refusal to construct another, the creature becomes violent. Finally, Victor's bride is killed by the monster as a final act of vengeance. Cat and mouse game ensues as monster leaves Victor in search of prey. The monster is Victor, and Victor is Victor. In the end, the monster feels remorse for his deeds and takes his own life after Victor succumbs to his tortures. Robert Walton, the captain of the ship that rescues Victor Frankenstein. In his letters to his sister, he tells some of the stories. The captain appreciates Victor's thoughtful responses and sees them as signs that they are growing closer. Victor tells Walton his story while he is being cared for. Walton, in some ways, resembles Victor. He is an intellectual individual who is attempting to uncover something new. While near the North Pole, Walton is expecting to learn more about the Earth's magnetic core, which he believes would help him find a path to the Pacific Ocean. The least he can do is set foot on previously uncharted land if everything else fails. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley was the daughter of British philosopher William Godwin and British author and feminist Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin. Before she was 4 years old, Mary's mother died. Her father remarried shortly after her birth. The woman in question was a next-door neighbor with whom Mary had a tense relationship. Mary's liberal political ideology was instilled in her by her father, who taught her the fundamentals of his political philosophy. In addition to frequently taking her on educational excursions, he provided her with free use of his enormous library. She also hired private tutors to help fill in the gaps in her schooling that he didn't cover. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the poet, and former U.S. Vice President Aaron Burr were among the luminaries she encountered on her travels. Percy Bysshe Shelley, a poet and one of her father's political supporters, swept her off her feet when she was 16. He was married at the time, but his wife committed suicide in 1816, and he married Mary. Mary authored Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus, during a trip to Switzerland. A year after she finished writing it, her husband helped her put it out there. Percy Florence Shelley, born in 1819, was the only child born to the couple. Her husband perished in the sea off the coast of Viareggio in 1822 after his boat capsized due to a storm. Mary went to England after her husband's death, where she focused on raising her son and writing. There were many genres of Mary's writings. Novels and short stories were among them. She was a travel writer and a biography. Percy Bysshe Shelley's works were also edited and marketed by her. Since her husband's book, Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus, made Mary Shelley a household name, new scholarship has focused on her other works. A ruthless dictator named Castruccio Castracani, 1281–1328, commanded Ghibelline armies in Tuscany against the Guelphs and was the subject of the 1823 novel Valperga, or The Life and Adventures of Castruccio, Prince of Lucca. Shelley uses this conflict to tell the stories of the fictional women she has created. In 1826, she released The Last Man, a short novella that became a bestseller. One day, the earth will be overtaken by an awful plague. Because of this, she incorporated their names into the novel as the Earl of Windsor and Adrian, as well as her husband, Lord Byron's, in the role of Lord Raymond. It's a tragic love story about how art and creativity can't save the protagonists from their plight. Shelley was a self-taught genius. It is clear from her writings that she did not follow her husband's individualistic romantic ethos or her father's Enlightenment politics. Radicalism was a cause that she was a fan of. The Radical Party advocated for sweeping reforms in the United Kingdom. The party sought a fundamental change in the UK's election system. There were some who demanded republicanism, the abolition of titles, the redistribution of land, and a right to the press. Mary died of a brain tumor in 1851 after suffering from headaches and partial paralysis. Despite the fact that she requested that her son and his wife bury her in St. Pancras beside her parents, they decided that the cemetery was too run down for that purpose. St. Peter's Church, Bournemouth, was chosen as her final resting place because of its proximity to their home in Boscombe. On the one-year anniversary of her death, her son and his wife opened her desk and found hair from her deceased children, a notebook she shared with Percy Bysshe Shelley, and a copy of his poem Adonais. Some of his cremated ashes and a piece of his heart were preserved in a silk packet with a page from the poem. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.